Good morning, and wanted to come here this morning to Monmouth County to sign our application to the President and to FEMA for relief given the storm that occurred this past week. Our application, as you'll see later on when it's distributed, applies to 13 counties in New Jersey which under the FEMA criteria qualify for consideration for extraordinary relief. There'll be Bergen, Cape May, Cumberland, Essex, Hudson, Middlesex, Ocean, Somerset, Union, Atlantic, Monmouth, Morris, and Passaic. And that's based upon, as we've gone through before, earlier in last winter, criteria regarding snowfall and the amount of money expended to deal with the disaster by each municipality. Now, we've already been in touch with FEMA. FEMA will be on the ground here because we've been able to make our application today. FEMA will be on the ground here on Monday to begin their damage assessment, and so we'll hopefully be able to move rapidly through the process of getting the damage assessment done and then getting federal reimbursements to the municipalities and counties across the state who have incurred extraordinary expense with regard to dealing with this storm. First and foremost, I want to thank the two gentlemen standing behind me, Colonel Fuentes, the State Police, and Commissioner Simpson of DOT. This has been an extraordinary 5 days for them. They have been literally on the front lines of this, out on the road together, dealing with the various issues that have cropped up across the state, which I'll detail for you in a moment. But these are the type of really extraordinary leaders that I'm proud to have as members of my cabinet. And when you have a crisis like this, there's not any one person who can deal with this crisis. There are literally hundreds of people across government who have to deal with it, but they need to have that kind of leadership. And the leadership on the ground that Commissioner Simpson and Colonel Fuentes showed over the course of the last 5 days were extraordinary. And I thank them both personally a number of times over the phone and then in person again this morning. And I want to thank them again publicly for what they've done on behalf of the people of the state. I also want to thank the Senate President. The Senate President did an exceptional job as well in being able to provide the on-the-ground leadership that's required by our Constitution, given that myself and the Lieutenant Governor were out of the state at the time. Senator Sweeney and I consulted on all of the significant decisions that needed to be made during the period of my time out of the state. We never once disagreed on what needed to be done. We spoke with each other before any decisions were made. We were both briefed by, on what seemed like an every other hour basis by either Chief of Staff Bagger or Chief Counsel Chiesa on the issues that were going on, in addition to the regular conference calls we had with all the emergency management folks that went on from Christmas Eve all the way through this past Wednesday. And so I want to thank the Senate President. He, once again, has displayed himself to be someone who is putting getting things done ahead of partisanship. And while other members of his party decided to use this as an opportunity to once again bang partisan drums, the Senate President decided, as I did, to put the people of the state of New Jersey first and not any partisan considerations. And so I thank Senator Sweeney for grabbing the baton for those 5 days and for doing it in exemplary fashion. And I thank him also for the great spirit of nonpartisanship that he brought to this task, because these are not Republican or Democratic storms. They are storms that affect all the people of our state, and they need the leadership that everybody provided across state government. Lastly, I want to mention just a few folks too, before I get into some other issues. Everybody who's involved at DOT did an extraordinary job. There's Bill Carter, Jim Hogan, John O'Hearn from the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, who's here with us, John Cifelli from the Turnpike Authority, who really captained the real cleanup that needed to be done here in Monmouth County, which was the epicenter of what went on in this storm. I want to thank those folks in particular for their hard work and the folks at OEM and the state police, who under Colonel Fuentes' leadership worked as a team with DOT and the rest of the administration to get things done. I'll just give you some perspective on this. 2,200 different pieces of equipment were deployed during this storm. So that you know, we started to discuss this in earnest. The state police began on the 22nd of December. The governor's office was looped in beginning on the morning of Christmas Eve to begin to discuss this. I participated in conference calls, as did my senior staff and relevant members of the cabinet, beginning then frequently throughout Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. There was a significant change in the forecast from Christmas Eve to Christmas Day. On Christmas Eve, we were talking about a storm that was not going to be anywhere near the size this was. Christmas Day, that began to change and became more serious as Christmas Day went into Christmas evening. Still without a great deal of certainty as to just how bad it was going to be, but we certainly knew that it was beginning to become worse. We were communicating with each other and adjusting our plans the entire time. I participated in those calls, as did my senior staff, as did members of the cabinet, in laying out the groundwork for how we were going to deal with the problem. I spoke with Senator Sweeney on the 22nd of December to let him know that the Lieutenant Governor and I would both be out of the state from the 26th to the 30th, and checking to make sure that he was going to be available to serve in the role as acting governor as is constitutionally required. He assured me that he was, and he was a participant in being briefed on all the information leading up to his taking over as acting governor about 9:30 on the morning of December 26th. There were a number of events that occurred that have to be put into some context. On the evening of the storm, on Route 280 in Essex County in the Oranges, you had over 300 vehicles stranded on that small stretch of Route 280. Urban search and rescue, led by the state police and DOT, sprung into action immediately. All of those people were rescued from 280, from their stranded vehicles, without incident. That's an extraordinary job. At the same time that those events were unfolding on Route 280, you had the incident on the Garden State Parkway between Holmdel and Telegraph Hill. Over 100 vehicles were stuck in that stretch in the midst of the storm. All of those 100 people were evacuated by DOT and OEM, state police, Turnpike Authority, Urban Search and Rescue. All of them were also then evacuated to shelters, and the 100 vehicles were towed off of the road. Of course, both of those things require the redeployment of assets from other places you might put them to deal with what we thought was the most emergent risk to human life, which was having these people stranded in their vehicles on those roadways. In addition, you had a third incident happening on 195, west of here, where 150 vehicles were stranded on 195. They then sprung into action to deal with that situation, deploying more assets over to there. All 150 of those people were rescued from their vehicles without incident. This is an extraordinary accomplishment by the folks standing behind me. We planned for this, and they executed the plan. This government executed the plan and saved those lives and rescued those folks from what was a really awful situation that couldn't have been avoided given the intensity of the storm and how quickly it came up and how much snow was dumped on folks, especially in Monmouth County, about 4.5 inches an hour during the height of the storm, and 50 to 60 mile an hour winds. So this was an extraordinary storm, and we should not lose sight of that as we look at the aftermath of the cleanup. So people would say, where did we stand by Tuesday morning? Because state offices were closed on Monday. That decision was made jointly by myself and the Senate President. We initially had thought we could get away with a delayed opening, but as we continued to talk through the night on Sunday night and into the early morning hours of Monday morning, we determined that the intensity of the storm required the closing of state offices, so we adjusted the plan again. I was consulting on the phone from where I was on vacation with senior staff. Recommendation was made to close state offices. I said that would be my recommendation to the Senate President as well. He agreed, and we closed state offices to give us the opportunity to try to clear these roads as much as we could. By Tuesday morning, we had about 90% of the state's roadways and interstate highways function. That doesn't mean every lane was cleared. It means they were passable and functioning. And by 3 o'clock, that was up to 95%. So less than 24 hours after the state emergency was lifted, 95% of the state roadways, interstate highways were cleared and passable. We obviously had a situation here in Monmouth County on Route 18. Part of the cause of that situation was the 3 situations I've detailed to you with you before. You had 280, 195, and the Garden State Parkway, which had real imminent concerns of potential loss of life. On 18, the problem was that we couldn't use conventional snowplow equipment on 18. The snow drifts on 18 were too high to deal with it. Even today, as I drove on 18, and before I came here today, I took a tour of a good part of the affected area of Monmouth County, along with the DOT commissioner and the colonel. There's still, on 18, a stuck DOT plow truck that is still stuck in the shoulder on one side of Route 18. You could not use conventional equipment, so we had to deploy front loaders to that area to move the snow with front loaders. That, by definition, takes much longer than when you're doing it with a plow, but it was the only way to get it done because we continue to have more and more DOT or Turnpike Authority trucks stranded trying to do it the conventional way. So again, the leadership team met, talked over the telephone, made a decision to change the way we were attacking the issue on 18. And obviously, if you drive on 18 today, the situation is as close to normal as it will be after having nearly 3 feet of snow dumped on that area of Monmouth County. All of this stuff, all the manpower that's been deployed, has been deployed, in my view, extraordinarily effectively. I mean, I would give the folks in New Jersey state government and county government an A for the effort that they put in. We probably get a B+ for the results, in my view. We can always do better. And I've asked the commissioner and the colonel, as they always do, to go through a debrief. I spoke to county officials here in Monmouth today about that before coming in to meet with all of you, to go back and do a post-mortem on this and see how we can do better the next time. We know we will have other snowstorms this winter. Hopefully they won't be as bad as this one was. But we're going to have them, and so let's go back and look through what we can do better, because I know we can always do better, we can always improve at every level of government, and that should be our goal. But if you compare what's happening here in New Jersey to other places in our country, these folks and the leadership of this administration did what I think is a very good job on dealing with this storm. The last thing I'd say to the people of the state is, when we get a storm that's 2.5 or 3 feet worth of snow, there is going to be periods of inconvenience and some periods of fear that are going along with that. It's just, it's just what happens when Mother Nature decides that she's going to unleash that kind of fury on a state like ours. Everyone up here did the best they could. The effort, the lack of sleep, the extraordinary heroism that a lot of people showed in rescuing folks from all roadways all over the state needs to be commended. And candidly, all the Monday morning quarterbacking and the carping and complaining should just take a deep breath. Informed criticism and critique is always welcome, and we're going to be going through self-criticism and self-critique as we look back on how we did these things. But let's all of us keep it in perspective. It was the 5th largest snowstorm in the last 100 years in New Jersey. So there are going to be challenges we're going to face, and not everything's going to go perfectly. But we can thank God today that we did not have any significant loss of life that was directly related to any of the travel on our roadways. That's a pretty significant accomplishment and a real blessing for us as we go into the new year that we didn't have that. No reports here of EMTs not being able to get to homes to be able to get people who were fallen ill. No reports of people not being able to travel to hospitals if they needed to. None of that stuff was happening in our state. And that's due to the leadership of the folks you see standing behind me. And the plan that we laid out beginning on the 22nd of December as we prepared for this. It's not the kind of thing that you just do overnight. lastly, just to give you some other statistics on this, there were over 900 motor vehicle accidents during the period of the storm, and over 3,900 vehicles received some assistance. This is just on the state roadways now, providing gas or towing or freeing somebody from the snow. I mean, it's an extraordinary amount of work in a very short period of time that people were able to get done. So, you know, we'll always learn a lot from every one of these things, and we'll go back and try to figure out how we can do better the next time. But I will tell you, I think that the government here in New Jersey, at every level, there are always going to be exceptions to that rule. But I think in the main, people did very, very well here. And the people of the state, while frustrated, and I understand their frustration about any inconvenience like this that happens to them, you know, if you live in the Northeast, this is going to happen sometimes. And we just have to, you know, be the tough New Jerseyans that we are and grit our teeth and get through it. And I absolutely believe that folks will. And tonight they'll enjoy bringing in the new year in a New Jersey that is significantly better than it was a year ago, in my view. So I thank you all for coming, and I'm pleased and proud to take your questions.